my stomach seeing all of the Dolphins roundtables, the Jets roundtables. And I figured, why doesn't the team that is destined to win their fourth straight AFC East division title not have any representation on this channel whatsoever? So I ended up getting together some of my personal favorite content creators to come together and bring you, as always, the Bills Roundtable. And yes, we may have a fourth guest joining us. I think that we have determined who our fourth is moving forward. He's just getting off of work. He may join us. He may not join us. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't smash that like button. Helps out the channel tremendously. You already know how that goes. And gents, we have some co-hosts here for you. Starting off with Kevin Masari. What's going on, man?
Living the dream, brother. Glad to be here on the Buffalo Bills Roundtable to represent what, to me, is the best team in this division. So we definitely need the representation.
See, I'll tell you what, my friend, it's super hysterical because I feel like that you were sort of on the train with me about your own version of the greatest story ever told, still feeling confident, even through the damn lulls. You were right there. That's why I was like, dude, this guy, I need that positivity. You know, I needed that positivity. Z-Bot, as all of you guys know, right? He is on Roundtable quite often. He's on our Monday show. He's all around. He's all around, ladies and gentlemen. The Buffalo Fanatics as well. He definitely needed to become a believer, but here he is. Z, what's going on with you, man? How's the good life?
Well, speaking of Monday shows, I'm thinking Monday's upcoming show could be the greatest show of all time to go along with the greatest story ever told. If we get it done against the Dolphins and I get to sit down next to TD on that roundtable Monday night, I mean, that's just the cherry on top, Dan. But for now, there's no shit talking. I haven't done nothing but facts, nothing but unbiased opinions. Until now, we have to keep level-headed, locked in, straightforward to Sunday night. And that's why I'm so happy you launched the AFC East Roundtable with us, because like you said, everybody else is getting a little taste over there. And for what good reason? What are they watching the Jets Roundtable for? What's going on over the Jets Roundtable? Are they talking about the Epstein list over there? What's the point? We got to get in here. We're talking about Kimmel and Rogers over there, right? They're talking about Kimmel and Rogers. Right now, we're talking about AFC's championship. So let's get after it.
It's, dude, those poor Jets. You know what I mean? Shout out to Richie, and once again, another depressing season. But gents, all right.
Well,
so
Rogers won't let him catch a break, man.
Say that again.
I said Rogers won't let the poor fans catch a break. It's every
they won't
with this guy. You got me, or am I gone? No, okay, good. All right. Yeah, no, they won't. It's crazy.
Dude, man. And so it is what it is. But guys, listen, you know what? Obviously Sunday is upon us. And then Z-Bot and I were looking right at this over at the Buffalo Fanatics stream prior to us coming on to here. And guys, we're looking at a damn laundry list of their players. And it's funny, too, because a lot of Dolphins fans in the chat would just be like, oh, yeah, dude, don't worry. Week 18, we're sitting all of our starters. Well, I guess you weren't wrong. All right? I guess you weren't wrong, because from what I'm seeing on this injury report, you are. All right? And, hey, it's definitely intriguing. Kev, I want to start with you. By looking at this overall injury report from Miami going into it, does this change your mind if they were 100% healthy, and just really your overall thoughts of a game plan, especially without, number one, virtually no pass rush, their CB2, likely their wide receiver 2? What impact does this play on Sunday? Should we gain some more confidence, or should we still be a bit more stagnant and humble until the game's over? Talk to me.
I said in week 4 that I thought this was a good matchup for the Bills, specifically that I think that the way that they play defense and what they're able to do. So they're number 2 in the league DVOA against the middle of the field. And what do the Dolphins do? They're number 1 in the league at attacking the middle of the field. So that's just a matchup pro in favor of the Bills, and that's full strength. Now, when you take what I tweeted earlier was you're going to take the Dolphins running back 1, possibly the running back 2's hurt. He's been in a boot most of the season, and Mostert's in a boot, Hill's in a boot, everybody's in a boot. You take the receiver 2 out. Their starting offensive line, including Connor Williams, who's on IR. So 6 of their starters, so 5. They're all on this injury report. You take out their cornerback 2, edge 1 and 2. I mean, at some point, like, that's too much, right? And the offense, since the last 5 weeks is actually in 11th in DVOA. So they went from that by far the best offense ever to exist in pro football to now not even better than the Bills offense. They lose their edge. To me, they got a little bit of boost defensively. They're technically playing defensive football, but they're missing too much now. And so for me, I think that the Bills match up extremely well. They know how to drift Bernard into cover 3, cover 6. Tua is not a very good quarterback with the middle of the field's taken away. You take away Waddle, and you can just bracket cover 6 Tyreek Hill, who's in a boot the whole game.
So is that what defenses like the Ravens and Buffalo does? And by the way, like half of the reason why I brought Kevin on here is because like he is like the king of X's and O's. Myself, I'm just a fan who likes talking shit. All right. So you have to get a better perspective coming on in there. And I mean, honestly, like when this like looks around and I pose this question, we'll start off with Z, but then I do want to hear your thoughts on this. We touched on this briefly. If you're the Dolphins, what is the points of trying to rush back some of these players on the injury report, ladies and gents, because these are not depth players that are on this injury report. These are literally like your foundation for your quote unquote greatest show on surf. What exactly are they trying to prove by risking these guys going into it? Z-Bot, do you see a world where the Dolphins go on ahead and try and rush these guys back, or do you think them being a bit smarter and maybe going on ahead and just trying to put the game on Tua's back and move forward from that? What do you think?
Well, you said it would be a bit smarter. I don't know how intelligent that would be. I think that this Dolphins team goes into this week 100% trying to not only win this game, but prove a point. Last week, they had the point proven to them. This Miami Dolphins team was utterly embarrassed by the best team currently in the NFL. And you could say that a handful of different times. Not only just this year, but the last couple of seasons. This Miami Dolphins team is now in a position to do what they haven't done in well over a decade. They're trying to do what they haven't done in nearly a quarter century. And if they follow up that embarrassing loss going into the Bills, trying to rest guys to pursue the playoffs, and they get rolled again, I wouldn't even be as much worried about the injuries as I would be the psychological damage that can do. I mean, I watched Hard Knocks last week. This team was destroyed. I mean, not only did they get killed on the field, on the scoreboard, but then to add on top of it the Chubb injury, and you just watch that whole sidelines, everything changed. It just felt like the wind got completely sucked out of the sail and the boat tipped over. It reminded me a little bit of when Matt Milano went down against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it just felt like the Bills never recovered from that. They couldn't do anything the rest of the game. So do I think the Miami Dolphins may benefit from, resting guys or whatever, coining the, back to what you said, do I think they'll benefit from getting ready to get some of these guys who are on the fringe towards the playoffs, more so going into this game? They would benefit from that, but they killed that benefit a couple of weeks ago, blowing that lead against the Titans in one of the worst collapses I have ever seen in my life. And I think statistically, based on the records, that was one of the worst blown leads in NFL history. I don't think anybody had ever lost a game up 14 points with under 3 minutes left. The Miami Dolphins did. People forget that's the only reason this game is what it is on Sunday night, is because of that. So this Dolphins team has the record. They have the stats on their side to back them up with all this gusto going into this game and whatnot. But I feel like in the locker room, within the team, after last week, after, yes, beating Dallas, but 5 field goals and 1 touchdown, and we know how fraudulent Dallas has been all year and continue to prove it, this Dolphins team has to go into this game wanting to prove something to themselves as they head into the playoffs, because this is the biggest opportunity they've had in a while. And every other opportunity they've seemingly had throughout the last couple of seasons to try and take that next step, they've squandered. It's one more opportunity here. But, back to your point, would they benefit from resting guys? Yes. The fact that they're even in that position to have to question that is ultimately what the biggest problem for this team is going into this game to begin with. So either way you look at it, the Dolphins right now are finding a way to hit a real rough patch at the real worst time. You look at that injury report, and it's hard to look at the Dolphins right now and feel overly confident about their chances to go and be the team we've seen glimpses of throughout the year.
So it's literally like picking your damn poison, right? It's just like, okay, yeah, let's rush back Waddle and Tyreek and Mostert. This is one poison pill, but then the second poison pill is, oh yeah, like we could rush them back and win, but then we play the Buffalo Bills as the 7 seed again twice in a row. Do we really trust that we could beat them twice in a row? Or let's go on ahead and sit them, and then we go into the Arrowhead Invitational. Kev, what do you think is the Dolphins' biggest priority from their own perspective, right? Like, what do you think they find more valuable, like going into Sunday? Is there a world where you see them actually resting a lot more guys that would be objectively surprising on Sunday? Or do you really think that they're putting this AFC East divisional at a top priority rather than staying healthy for the playoffs moving forward?
I think the goal for them is to beat Kansas City. Like, that's got to be the goal. That's got to be what you're thinking of. The only way you have a chance at this thing is beating Kansas City next week. You do not win anything by getting the Bills back in your building next week in the hopes of then being better. Like, rest your players and be smart about it. I had a week or two ago, even I was like, I think the 6th seed may be where the Bills lie, and let's get ready for Kansas City. Let's do whatever we can to be there. Yeah. If we were in a similar boat with all of our players hurt, it would be tough for me to say, like, let's only focus on this game. And the goal of life is to win the AFC East and be the 2 seed. I mean, we've seen that can not mean anything. I mean, the Bills have the chance to be the 3 out of 4 times the 2 seed who hasn't had the bye. The Bills will have a chance to have that. It hasn't meant much. So to me, ultimately, going to Kansas City, a team that hasn't been good either, go beat them with a full strength roster. That's where my priority would be if I was the Miami Dolphins. Though it's Mike McDaniel, I don't expect him to make good decisions when it comes to roster management or roster decisions or injuries, because I don't believe a thing he says. He had to apologize to the media again for his Mostert, basically lying about how hurt Mostert was, to the point where he had to lie, or he had to come on his press conference and admit, like, sorry for misleading you. Dude wasn't even close to playing. He still isn't even at practice. So, like, he's misleading. He's misleading with bad concussions when it came to Tua. He's been misleading when it comes to his roster from the start. So I don't trust anything that he has to say when it comes to his injury report. And ultimately, I do think they kind of said last week, like, it's house money. Let's go into Baltimore, see what we can do with this hurt team. We saw what that equaled. Yeah. I don't know how you follow that up with this roster and think you're going to get the same result. You might as well rest them and hope for the best next week because you got it clinched. Ultimately, Dan, if the Bills clinch a spot before the game kicks off, I don't know how the Dolphins can have an extreme amount of motivation in this game other than, like, giving the division to their fans. They got to get healthy. They got to get right. And pushing these guys could end their season, not further it.
See, that's a tremendous segue.
So to Kevin,
go ahead, Z.
I'll go. I just wanted to ask real quick. Tons of great points. I'm wondering, who do you hone in on specifically when you're talking about that? Is that Waddle? Is that Mostert? Or is it a variety of other guys as well?
It's Waddle and it's Mostert first and foremost. If you see those guys play, like, they shouldn't be. It's already been reported that he wouldn't have apologized if Mostert was supposed to play, first and foremost. Second of all, Waddle was already reported to not be ready to the playoffs. He's walking around the locker room. He didn't even show up. He was on the side working with trainers in shoes and straight up sneakers. So to me, like, if either of those play, I do not expect either of those guys to suit up. I still think that they're going to put another name to watch out for is their starting linebacker, who's been out for a good amount of time now, that apparently they're not sure if he's going to be ready to play. So it's tough for me who just came back from the designated to return list in Jerome Baker. So he's another name to watch out for. If he plays, I think they're pushing it. Emmanuel Ogbah is another guy who's been hurt. Now he has to play. So their entire like Taron Armstead plays through things his entire career. Like, their entire O-line's hurt. So ultimately we'll see if any of these names trend the other way, but really, and then the big one is A-Chain. Like, he has been hurt the entire season. He needs to rest, but he can't because of Mostert.
So really, out of anybody that's on, like, the
do not practice, to your point back.
And so really anybody that's on, like,
there's a bit of a lag here.
Oh, no issue at all, man. No issue at all. So, like, literally out of anybody that's on, like, the do not practice designation, right? Like, I mean, obviously there's Chubb who's not coming back, obviously, with that ACL, which is complete fucking blasphemy that they would waste that guy in garbage time when they were down by 40. They fucking deserve that shit.
Do you trust this coach with injuries? Do you trust him? Because I don't.
No.
Right.
I don't either. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they
by the
tried
way,
going on
just so
ahead.
you know, just so you know, though, all of these points that Kevin's making, we're talking about with the injuries here, that means, according to the Dolphins fans, that the Bills are hoping Miami does not play their starters. I hope that comes across, because that's exactly what we're trying to drive home as we're talking about the possibilities coming into Sunday. I just hope it gets driven home that we are very scared and we are begging the Dolphins to rest all of their starters as Bills fans, because apparently that's how this is coming across. Just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay, first off, ladies and gentlemen, all right? 48-20 when we played your team fully damn healthy. I assure you the last thing we're worried about is a healthy or an unhealthy team going into it. Dude, we're not worried, all right? We are not worried, all right? Especially with this list by itself. We're just trying to look out for you because we understand how important it is to actually end up winning a playoff game. Kev, I'm not sure about you. How are your interactions with Fins fans on Twitter? Because I certainly know that, like, you're relatively vocal. And so you pissing a lot off this week?
I mean, I try to not create a ton of receipts because people will come after data. So with receipts comes, or then they attack the rest of your data. So it's tough. But I come after, it's kind of the reverse. When I take receipts, and I will come after you with legit data later on. Like, look, we're not scared to play. Like, we played full strength. Cover 3 and cover 6 will beat a team that targets the middle of the field. McDermott is the best in the league. You can do whatever you want to McDermott. You can yell at him. You can hate him. He is the best in the league at disguising coverage and clouding up the middle of the best in the league at it defensively. He runs an extremely difficult defense to understand. No rookie quarterback. One note for if the Bills move on to the 2 seed and play Houston, let's say, no rookie quarterback has ever thrown for more than 1 touchdown against Sean McDermott's defense because of how confusing that is. Justin Herbert, Tua, Trevor Lawrence, Baker Mayfield, who was really good at the time, Sam Darnold, you name it, Mac Jones. Some of those names aren't great, but at the time they had really great rookie seasons. It's because of how confusing his defense is. You don't know what coverage you're getting. He runs cover 3 15% of the time, cover 6 15% of the time, even through a little cover 0 in at times, not much anymore. But you just don't know what he's doing. And Tua's first read is difficult. That's why he struggles. That's why he has such a struggling record against the Bills and McDermott, because it's a challenging defense to overcome. Now, I'm not saying he can't, but ultimately we're not scared of your full strength starters. Without Waddle's actually the one that is very good against zone coverage because of his deep threat and his ability to find the deep middle. Without him, I mean, he is the Bills zone beater. So that is what I'm saying. He is the Bills zone beater. He is very difficult. That's why Skylar Thompson played okay, because of he's able to beat zone. He's very good at it. He's able to beat 15 to 20 yards down the field.
And so I'm not sure about you, Z-Bot, but I am learning a lot right now.
Well, and that's that point he made about Waddle, though, is huge, because that's the truth. When you go in and play against the Dolphins, the biggest fear to the naked eye would be, well, it's Tyreek Hill. Of course it is. Tyreek Hill kills everybody. But when you look at Tyreek Hill's stats against the Bills, nothing special at all. In particular, when he's with the Dolphins, the last 3 games, 33 yards, 69 yards, 58 yards. 2 of those 3 games, he had 5 targets or less. So Waddle being out is honestly huge, because then Tyreek becomes the main focal point, not that he already isn't to begin with week in and week out, but the Bills take him out. And if you remember last year in the game where the Bills clinched the AFC East at home against the Dolphins in the snow game, Tyler Bass does the snow angel at the end after he kicks the game winner. Waddle was the one that was the impact player, bar none, in that game for the Miami Dolphins, as well as their ground game. Tyreek Hill, not so much. So not only am I learning a lot, but it also is making me think of other things as well. It's such a great point, because Waddle now being out puts all the focus on Tyreek Hill, who McDermott has had a ton of success against.
So where does Tua go? So where does he go, right? Like, what is their game plan against this defense? Like, what is their game plan?
Achane. So his plus matchup in this game is Achane. Like, it's find Achane in space, get it out to him quick. Hopefully the Bills are being ultra aggressive on a certain play, and let him do his thing. He averages 8 yards a carry. So you're looking at Achane as your first key to how to beat the Bills, and try to make space and different zone beaters for Tyreek Hill. The difference is the Bills are going to switch up from cover 3 to cover 1. They're going to be in situations that aren't always indicative for a player like how Tyreek Hill plays. So it's going to be very interesting without the middle of the field merchant like you have in Travis Kelce, for instance, when Tyreek Hill was with the Chiefs. he doesn't have that safety net. And Durham Smythe, so you don't really have that safety net there for someone like Tyreek Hill. And Jalen Waddle is a good complement to it. He is a guy, if you look through his numbers, I bet they're pretty good because the Bills were able to lock down the Dolphins in Miami, the game they lost. The only person who was able to find success against that zone and against the Ingrams of the world. They're playing Ingram and they were playing Jaquan Johnson, and those guys were winning matchups. However, Jalen Waddle was able to find success deep in the middle of the field where cover 6 is vulnerable. So that's really where if the Bills are in a cover 1, you want to get behind the guy merchanting in the middle of the field, and it's deadly. And Waddle's able to do that. So without him, unless you got a revenge game by Robbie Chosen Anderson and him or Chase Claypool, they have 2 elite receivers. You can't expect to have 5 elite receivers on a roster, but missing one is a huge issue when it comes to attacking the Bills. They got to rely on Devin Achane. I can't think of any other way in the passing game too. I can't think of any other way that it would go south, especially if Mostert's not able to go, because he is their red zone weapon. He has 20 plus touchdowns. He is the guy they go. He's their Josh Allen when it comes inside the 20. He's that good. Inside the 20s, fine. He's nothing crazy special, but inside, when he's in the red area, he's dominant. Taking that off the field, taking your zone beater off the field. I don't know. Devin Achane's got to be the answer though.
So you're looking at all of the injuries as well, on their defense. They really can't hone in on that run game very long, right? Especially with all the mismatches we're seeing from the Bills offense and their defense going into it too. It's something I'm definitely going to be paying attention to, that's for sure. But it's some wild stuff, guys. And you know what? It's a segue I wanted to bring up because this has been going viral for quite a bit, right? We've been seeing the scenarios going into it. And I'm not sure if anyone's ever heard of anything nearly as fucking insane that the Bills could be living in a world where they have the 2 seed or they miss the playoffs entirely. I'm not sure if any of you thought that we would ever be in this world. I'm not even sure if this has ever been done historically in the league. I'm sure that if it has, it's been a handful of times going into it because this just seems like a rare occurrence to me at this point going into it. Now, as much as I want to say that we're going to have a playoff spot locked in prior to Sunday, I know exactly how the season's been going. All right. As much as I want to say that Tannehill is going to go out there and he's going to have the game of his life on his audition against the Jags, or that Huntley's going to go out there and beat the hell out of the Steelers, there's just a gut feeling that I have a feeling that we are going to be faced with either 2nd seed or no playoffs. Thoughts?
Well, for me personally, for one, I don't even think it clicked to me until late last week that the 2 seed, all of a sudden that I had been so focused on just getting in week to week, just trying to survive and then look ahead and see, okay, how the hell can they just slip in? And that's why a couple of weeks ago, I'm just sitting here working and I have the Dolphins game on against the Titans. And, at that point, it was basically a blowout. The Titans had fumbled the ball away. I'd never seen, they were just shitting themselves. Fumbled the ball 2 consecutive plays, I believe. And all of a sudden, the Dolphins, who have been struggling that game, they're up and that game looks over. And then all of a sudden, the Titans out of nowhere pull one of the most miraculous comebacks ever out of their ass. And I started freaking out because I think at that moment it clicked where I'm like, okay, the AFC East is actually now alive. But even then, I'm still thinking the Bills will get one of the later seeds because the Chiefs will beat they'll inevitably beat the Raiders or whatever else. I didn't think there was any scenario at the time where the 2 seed's going to occur, but I'm thinking, wow, the Bills' chances are getting higher and higher. Then all of this stuff unfolds that you just sit back and you're like, I'm stunned by this. In particular, the Kansas City Chiefs, they've been playing very similar all year long where it hasn't been prolific, but the way that they've been losing and then losing to that, in that Raiders game and all these other things stacking up and happening. And then it all of a sudden clicked to me where I'm like, oh my God, they can go from a scenario where they're barely sliding in to being the 2 seed. I hadn't given that any thought at all until at least about a week and a half ago. Mm-hmm. So I think to that point alone, yes, it's absolutely insane. And the fact that you can lose and get out is twice as insane. And I'd venture to believe with the addition of the 7th playoff team, this has got to be the first time this has happened, if not, like you said, Dan, one of the only, because it is ungodly absurd. And when you look at the AFC in totality, This is an absolute microcosm of this year in the AFC, where any team at any given point could be the last seed, and then any team at any given point could be the top seed. This is literally a microcosm of what the NFL has been, in particular in the AFC. So it makes a ton of sense. It also makes a ton of sense for these Bills too, because it's the exact same thing with them. Any given week, you'll be sitting there like, I cannot believe what I'm watching. And it can be for one or two reasons. It's the best thing you've ever seen, or it's one of those things that makes you want to bomb it. So this makes a ton of sense, but it doesn't make it any less shocking. And going into this weekend, I'm pumped as hell for every game and twice as pumped for every playoff game or any win-in scenario. But this is another level, man. I'm at another level, and the 2 seed's got a lot to do with it.
So thoughts going into it, though, and this question's posed to either of you. Like right before Sunday night, all right? If you were a gambling man, and do the Buffalo Bills have a playoff spot locked down, or will it be that second seed or a go?
What do you think, Kev?
Give me the odds, and then you can tell me. So the odds makers will have, so if you run a parlay or you just pick or just want to have fun with it, it's up to about a 60%, 63% chance with the rosters the way that they're built that the Steelers win. And it's about 68% chance the Jags win. So just out of raw like analytics and BPI, you're looking at an odds. If you add those two together, so you take 68% and then 63%, 42% chance that the Bills will not have it locked up. So, but that's both of them win. So in theory, you should though, because your odds
right.
Both. So I mean, you should in theory have odds that so you 42% chance they both win. So you're thinking 60% chance, factoring in the rosters now. So the 95% playoff probability is wrong. That's a little bit high when you use the New York Times machine, which has been broken the entire offseason. I'm sorry, New York Times, your playoff machine sucks. It's completely wrong, and they change values all the time.
I was just going to say that every time I go on, it's a different number.
It's a different number. Every single time. That's my biggest beef with it is, you can adjust it after the games, huh? So then what's the purpose of it? Of utilizing it. 538 had a really good generator that I used before, but Dan, it has never happened before where a team can play for the 2 or the 7. Don't forget the 2 used to be a bye. It absolutely hasn't happened in the 7 seed history, which isn't very long. But I don't believe, based on my research, it has happened either, even for the 2 or the 6, either back when the 6 would be the last wild card spot. So being from the 2 to the 8 in theory has never happened. More research would have to be done like well before playoff odds have changed and amount of teams and buys have changed throughout time. But at least in modern history, since the 95 or since really the salary cap era, it has not happened. So it would be the first time ever where the 3rd favorite Super Bowl odd team, the team that's probably the 2nd best in the AFC, is playing for the 2 or the 8 come kickoff. But I do think there's a reasonable chance 60% will hit that one of those games, a beat up Jacksonville team or Baltimore with something to play for, but not playing Lamar, not playing Odell Beckham Jr. I mean, it starts to get rough quickly there in a hurry. But I do think that there's some hope, some form of hope that at least one of those games will go right, and you'll have the 7 seed locked up come kickoff, which would give Miami even less of motivation in this game, in my opinion. The Bills can play a little bit looser. So that's kind of my opinion. But 60% may hit. I mean, it may hit.
Dude, I would go into a dark place. I would go into a dark, dark place if we lost to Miami.
Go to 8 seed.
I don't even know what that.
Dude,
it would be a top 5 Billsian moment ever. Like as Kevin's laying all that out with the numbers and whatnot, and you're sitting back and you're thinking, who else but the Bills? Where you're kind of scaling down. And you're like, yeah, this is the only time. And sure enough, it's the Bills right in there. But I will say to you, Dan.
Yes.
60% or whatever, be damned. I think that the way that they get in and lock it up, I think the Ravens beat the Steelers. That's how I see it. I think
Huntley. Stop sleeping on Tyler Huntley. We talked about
I just don't know if it's a significant. This team is not only beating teams, they are beating them like it's almost like if Alabama comes into your high school for an exhibition on a weekend, the way that these games have been going, and they've been against teams with winning records. I think they have it's 4 consecutive games now where they've won by multiple scores against teams with the winning records. It might even be something even more absurd than that. I think at the very least it's that. And it's because they're good just about everywhere in all different facets. And Lamar is obviously the crown jewel of that and the catalyst. But Tyler Huntley was a fumble on the goal line away last year from taking this Ravens team to the divisional round. this is a Ravens team that is still a damn good team. And as we saw last year with a Lamar-less Ravens team for the entirety of December, still made the playoffs. So Mason Rudolph, been playing on fire the last couple of weeks. I can't believe what the hell I'm seeing. It makes no sense to me. I think that something's got to give this weekend. I think the Ravens with Tyler Huntley get it done.
And a second off of that Ravens talk, 13.6 Pythagorean expectation, which is absurd. So 13.6 wins based on their numbers. They're 10-3 against teams with winning records. They have a 0.529 win percentage, strength of victory, and a 543 strength of schedule. It's a really good season, and that is why you'll see Lamar for the MVP votes, is because those numbers. I mean, they're really, really, really good regular season statistics, and as a team, which they're now kind of claiming that quarterback is a team's, it is a quarterback win stat. They are trying to claim that to me when it comes to the MVP discussion. But Lamar's numbers, when it comes to what they've done in these games, would point to Tyler Huntley being able to come in and, like you said, instead of going, the new thing is go low and get pushed in, not try to jump over people and have, a huge defensive end bat the ball out of your hands before you cross the goal line. Rogue too, because that wasn't the play call. So, but he's a good quarterback. He is able. He went to the freaking Pro Bowl last year. He is able to get it done. That defense is good. This isn't preseason. The number 2s of Baltimore are probably on par with some of these fringe wildcard teams, most notably the Steelers. So you're right. I think it's a 50-50 game with the starters with some of the starters not playing.
And so if I remember correctly as well, it was the Ravens backups and Huntley that moved the ball just as easily downfield on the Miami Dolphins last week during that last touchdown as well. All right. So I feel like everybody saying that, oh, Dan, oh, man, those Steelers, man, watch out for them. They just won't die. Right.
Well, they won't. They won't. It's annoying.
They won't. They won't. All right.
Minus their back-to-back losses to Arizona and to New England. But yeah,
dude, I'm sorry.
They make no sense.
And I've never bought into the whole league is scripted situation. But if the league was scripted, they don't want the fucking Steelers in the playoffs.
Right. Right.
They don't want a Texans, Colts, Steelers, Chiefs, Browns, Ravens, and Dolphins. They don't fucking want that. They need Josh Allen in that stadium. But regardless, we have a couple of super chats we got to get to. Cody, thank you so much. A CVS receipt is greater than a Walmart receipt. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And then Z-Bot was telling me about the Kohl's receipts as well. They're
a mile long.
Don't sleep on the Kohl's receipts either, ladies and gentlemen, if we're trying to compare the Miami Dolphins injury report. GP is saying, don't play with matches, kids. Oh, God. All right. Yeah. In case anyone didn't know, I guess, thank God that Tyreek's house is good. His family is up. But I guess the source of the fire was his kid was playing with a lighter or something like that. I don't know. Be careful.
Usually you see that and you think it's just a little fire or whatever, like you hear about it. And then you looked at it. I mean, man, that was no joke. I mean, that was unreal, man.
That's, dude,
terrible.
Mateo is coming in saying that the Finns are a different animal at, okay. All right. Listen, man. Okay, dude, I have never once, and we were talking about this earlier today. I've been to Hard Rock several times. Not once have I ever seen the Miami Dolphins not only fill their stadium, but number 2, I have never seen their fans outweigh the opposing fans that are in there. You have a night game. It's in January. My grandparents say that Miami is comfortable in January. It's going to be absolutely beautiful, my friend. There is zero home field advantage. Like, you literally have no advantage. I can't think of one. I can't think of an advantage. And guys, let me know. Say that I'm being way too much.
Well, I'll tell you where that's coming from, Dan. It's being discerned from the fact that they beat the Cowboys by 2 points with 1 touchdown. That's where it's coming from. They think that their big win of the year, which against the Cowboys, it was at home. All the other games that were big games were on the road, and they all lost. So the equation boils down to that. X plus Y equals Z. We played at home against the Cowboys, a good team, so we thought. We beat them. We were at home. We're really good at home. 5 field goals in that game. Dallas fumbles their first drive on the goal line. It's a whole different ball game. I'm not making any excuses here. I'm just saying the one game out of all of those was the one at home was the Dallas game, and we have now realized the Dallas Cowboys they took the fraud cup. They took the fraud cup off the mantle of the Miami Dolphins, and they now have it above their fireplace. And the Philadelphia Eagles are begging to come grab it from them. But I think that's where that mindset comes from. is the fact that a couple of weeks ago at home, they beat the Cowboys. So ergo, we are a different animal at home.
And hey, Kev, what is their home field advantage here? Because I'm not seeing it either.
I mean, I'll try to be realistic and give you some. I mean, I think they are 19-3 at home over the last 22.
Yeah.
I think that the advantage is the team sleeping in a different bed on a Saturday night. I mean, that is literally the professionals. That is literally the only difference. Because you're right. I think it's going to reach over 55 to 60% away fans in this game per some data. So you're not going to have that. The weather's nice. It's going to be in the 60s and cloudy. The rain's supposed to be gone. I mean, there's really not much advantage there other than the fact that they reasonably play well. But if you want to, I'm going to be fair back to not being fair. I mean, they have the weakest strength of schedule in the playoffs. They have the weakest strength of victory in the playoffs or the AFC. Like, great. Like, at some point, like, you did beat a team who ran a fullback dive and fumbled, like a play out of the 90s with Mike Allstott. But outside of that, like, I don't know why a team's running a fullback dive there. You have Dak Prescott. I don't understand that play call. And 5 field goals. Their offense didn't show. Like, I mean, this vaunted offense didn't show. Are we trending on a defensive team at this point with Miami? Because at some point, I mean, that's the way the data is pointing right now in the last 6 games. Like, it's a defensive team. So if that's what they want to be known as, the data does not supply. There's a home field advantage outside of being 19-3. I mean, that is a thing, I guess, but they don't get very strong opponents down there often, and they don't have a good strength of victory ever. And they don't beat teams with winning records, and their strength of schedule is weak too, the weakest toward the week in the league, like third weakest in the league. So,
yeah, I mean, and to your point on the 19-3, and then also, you know, to the disadvantage of the Dolphins in not being able to win some of these tougher games. You're right. Every single one of the quote unquote tougher games was on the road. This is going to be the toughest game they played at home all year, and it's week 18. So it's tough to really get a vibe of what they are at home when you look back at this schedule, and every single one of these games would not match up with the other games on the list here that were played on the road that were against playoff caliber opponents. So it is interesting. But to your point as well, Dan, I've been to Hard Rock, and it wasn't for me, man. It just, I didn't see it. That stadium is a glorified soccer stadium to me. It's a square, 2 levels. I don't know. I'm just built to go in and just really roughing it in Buffalo. There's something about less is more when it comes to this. To me, I like the bells and whistles and all that look great on TV, but part of me is kind of sad about the new stadium just because.
That's dude, me too. Surprisingly enough,
and it's the best. You know.
Yeah, dude. Me too. Surprisingly enough, and let's be honest with ourselves: 75% of our fans have no idea what that stadium truly looks like. All right. After hours and hours in the Hammerlot, no one understands it. That's why we appreciate it.
Nobody cares.
Anyway, Slippy L2 is saying, where will Tua go? To Kansas City next week.
Casey.
Go Bills. All right. This is great because we were actually talking about this a bit earlier about the dream playoff schedule that we might have going into it. All right. This is the dream playoff schedule. I'm almost convinced that I think that Miami should be planning on facing the Chiefs in Arrowhead. And then I'm also thinking that the Bills should be getting ready to welcome the Houston Texans next week in Buffalo. Beat the Texans, then welcome the Chiefs to Buffalo, and then the Cleveland Browns, who Z-Bot and I, Kevin, we are convinced that the Ravens are losing their first game against the Cleveland Browns.
Gut feeling.
Bills, Browns, and then I'd say the Niners probably. Bills, Niners, and Vegas. It's my thought.
Do you have you have the Chiefs beating the Dolphins?
I have the Chiefs beating the Dolphins, surprisingly enough. It's definitely going to be a mid-off. Honestly, I'll be honest with you, man. Like, I'm not impressed with the Chiefs whatsoever. I think I'd probably stay away from gambling on that game as much as I would want to see the Dolphins lose. I think they match up a hell of a lot better against the Kansas City Chiefs than they match up against the Buffalo Bills. So that could also be something.
Who do you want? Like, so would you prefer to play a path though of call it the Colts or Texans? Who cares? Call it the Colts or Texans, then the Browns, or would you rather go Colts Texans, Chiefs?
Chiefs. We talked about this earlier.
I want the Chiefs. I'm not impressed by them, man.
Okay.
One team I don't think I want to see right now is Cleveland. I don't know why. There's something to be said about a guy who's got nothing to lose, who's out there basically playing like you won a contest, I mean, obviously Joe Flacco,
Yep.
growing up, you definitely had to give him your respect. But to have him come back the way he has when the Jets, wanted nothing to do with him, he didn't do anything there last year, right? And you come off the couch and you're like what they did a couple of weeks ago with Amari Cooper. You couldn't help but just sit there with your mouth open the whole time. And this guy was just eating cereal with his family a couple weeks ago at that same time at home. So you mix that with the defense, Stefanski more than likely going to win Coach of the Year. There's just something weird about Cleveland, but it would be kind of poetic for the Bills and the Browns to face off in the playoffs with, two pretty damn good teams going into it, because these teams have always been kind of like stepbrothers to me in a way growing up. They were always just been very, very similar. So it would be a hell of a matchup, but to answer Kevin's question there, I don't know. There's just something about the Chiefs right now that I have very little respect for, and I know I'll say that, and I'll absolutely eat it when it comes around. But that Christmas game really left a mark on me. What they were unable to do against the Raiders, what the Raiders were unable to do against them and still win, that was as shocking of a loss I've seen in a while.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I get your point of view.
What about you? Where are you at, Kevin?
I'll say it. And so I'll say it, man. Listen, like, the Dolphins scare me more than the Kansas City Chiefs.
The division rivalry, I agree. If you play them a third time, right, and you'd have to beat them, what would that be? That would be 4 consecutive wins over them? 5?
Yeah.
I think it would be 4. I mean, that's tough. 5, yeah. I mean, that's back-to-back weeks, too. I mean, that's tough. Kevin, what do you think, though? I mean, are you in the Chiefs boat, too, or are you kind of on a different angle?
I just think Mahomes in the playoffs. So you're going to hear all the time. So let's say Dolphins are able to win that. You're going to hear, well, we could beat Mahomes in the playoffs on the road and you can't. So like ultimately, that's not a great storyline that I want to hear.
That's so true.
And it's Mahomes in the playoffs. Like at the end of the day, I don't think that roster is very good. The defense, they're frauds on defense, even though they got all this talk early on. It's now coming back to fruition. Their offense, I'm just scared they could come out of a slumber. I don't think the team as is very good. I mean, they weren't playing even good against the Bengals. But I just feel like at any point, Mahomes could just find some rhythm, at least in a game-to-game basis, to knock out a team or two, especially if they get to play at home. So I don't overly love playing Patrick Mahomes, who to me is still the best player in the league at any point in the playoffs. But I'm not. That doesn't mean I'm scared of him or don't think the Bills would win at home in the 2v3 matchup. I just don't know how much I love going there week 1 in Arrowhead after losing to the Dolphins. Something like that doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies. But equally so, guys, what about if the Dolphins somehow won? You're in the 2-7 game against Miami again. Are they winning back-to-back at home against the Bills?
No.
They're not. I mean, equal question, right? Is that an equal theory? Like I don't think they're winning back-to-back either.
Yeah. So
no, I mean, not a chance. That would honestly be the most stunned I'd be in a while if the Dolphins pulled that off twice in a row.
Back, yeah.
Yes. Wow. I didn't even think about that. So are we thinking Ravens lock it up and we say, hey, JA, take the night off and we'll get the title next year? We're moving on to the 7th seed. I don't know.
We might not be saying that, but they could be saying it because like the question you asked earlier, like, will they just rest these guys and go in? I mean, ultimately, like, winning us the first time isn't that important. It is important in theory, but it's not that you need to beat us back to back then. So like at some point you show all your cards and now we're coming in knowing your top play. Like, I don't know. It's tough. It is really tough, especially McDermott has a great record off of losses. He has a great record when facing a team a second time in a season. It's impeccable. So some of the things that McDermott's good at. So a lot of that stuff starts to work against the Dolphins, in my opinion, to have to play them back. So there's a lot of factors that go into this. Did they push it? Did they show everything they got? Play hurt player? Like maybe they do. And maybe that's the way McDaniel thinks. But ultimately, it is a question to know, like to have this little safety net, knowing that I'm going to Kansas City and we're focused on beating them because that's where we're going to get our goal, not getting crushed by Buffalo and then going on the road to Kansas City reeling. Like, I don't know. There is some thought there.
There is so much to unpack here. And in the more the days go on,
we're anticipating a Mike White. So we're anticipating a Mike White-led Miami Dolphins on Sunday night. I mean, honestly, really. And so the way that Easton Stick and Bailey Zappi were looking at some point, and Matt
we'd have no
Jones,
film on him in McDaniel's offense. We'd have no film on him.
I feel like Mike White might even be the move if I'm Mike McDaniel, to be honest with you.
I mean, Stick had a couple of balls, man, in that game. So who knows? Who the hell knows?
Dude, oh shit. All right, we got Austin coming in with a 20. Thank you so much, man. We sincerely appreciate that. What's up, my dudes? You see that Dalvin went to Baltimore? We did see that. We did see that, man. Also looked right to me like a couple of full planes in videos. I saw let's win this 2 seed. Austin. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely. Guys, say, for example, that you're just tuning in. Make sure you do smash that like button for us. This is the first episode of the Bills Roundtable. We are sincerely hoping that for the next couple of episodes, we are only going to be talking about positivity. But as you've heard us break this game down, things are looking up, unless, of course, the Buffalo Bills lay an absolute egg. And this is a theory. And Z, I'm not sure if you've put some more thought into this. And obviously now we have Kevin here who might be able to really sprinkle some data in here to see if our theory makes a little bit of sense. Why are we forcing 12-man personnel? Because from the eye test, and I'm not even sure if data backs this up by any stretch of the imagination, but since Dawson Knox has been back, I feel like that our offense has slowly started regressing, especially against, the Chargers and then obviously within the Patriots by itself. Are the Buffalo Bills trying to force feed this 12-man personnel, and does it really make our offense less efficient, where we should, in your opinion, just focus on 11? Back when Kincaid was the only tight end we had and we were just running 11 on it.
I just wonder if the reasoning behind it is not so much Knox is back and healthy and we have to do it or else, but I wonder if it's more so the lack of production from just about everybody surrounding this offense right now outside of the run game and Josh Allen trying to do X, Y, and Z with what he has. I mean, we obviously know what's going on with Stephon Diggs as of late. The numbers are nowhere to be found.
Yeah, that's weird too.
Right.
Yeah, that's weird too.
Gabe Davis will jump from a game with 0 receptions, 0 impact on the game whatsoever as far as the stat sheet is concerned. Then all of a sudden he'll be the leading guy in the game. And then Kincaid, all of a sudden, I felt like in the middle of the season, he was starting to have more and more increasing impact. As of late, that seems to have gone down a bit, but the run game, of course, has significantly increased. So I think a lot of those elements have gone down in pursuit of increasing the run game. But I don't know. I think there's a point to what you're making for sure. I also wonder how much factors in to they ran the living hell out of the ball exclusively against Dallas and didn't do anything else. Then they go into LA against a team with the dead cat bounce with a first game coached interim, an Easton Stick comeback game, so to speak, after the most embarrassing loss in franchise history, and a team who might have just wanted to play hard for an interim coach. I'm assuming the majority of those guys probably hated Brandon Staley. I know I certainly did, so I don't know how players felt in the locker room, but I can't imagine they loved the guy. And then, like we keep talking about with New England, that defense is beyond good. The reason no one ever gives them any credit is because their offense is so bad and their record is so bad. And the talk is, when's Belichick going to go to another team? Then nobody sits back and actually gives the credit due to the New England Patriots for the defense they put out on the field every given week. And we've also seen flashes of the Bills dominate the Patriots, but we've also seen Bill Belichick really give Josh Allen a lot of fits as well. So I'd be interested to hear what you have to say, Kevin, about the 12-man and how that's factored into the numbers, because to me, I don't know if the last 3 weeks I can take a whole lot of it just because it feels like there's so many different things at play, especially the Dallas game where I almost rule that out entirely because that was a one-off that I don't know if we'll ever see again.
Yeah, personnel tendency, definitely a much debated thing, and especially this season with the drafting of Dalton Kincaid. But break it down. Here's the issue that we're going to run into. They have an EPA of 0.22 in 12 personnel. It's a pretty successful EPA in 12. The league average is negative 0.04. So you're essentially much above average to the point where you're top 3 in the league at running 12 personnel. So that's what the Bills are going to continue to point to when someone says, well, why are you running 12? Because they pass out of it way more successfully. Now, conversely, when a team runs a too high shell or they're in some form of zone coverage, the 11 personnel situation has worked wonderfully to run out of 11 high because, you're in 11. They're going to threaten with Josh Allen. They're going to threaten and drop their safeties. You're going to run very successfully out of that to the league, the fourth best in the league running out of that. So it's actually reverse based on the data that out of 11 you run and out of 12 you pass, because 12 brings in some extreme mismatches. And ultimately, Dalton Kincaid's wide open on a wheel route last week, and Josh just didn't see him. But those are the mismatches that you're going to get all day in a 12. And Dawson Knox is a better pass catcher than he showed earlier this year. He was badly hurt, probably shouldn't have been playing, got the injury or got the surgery, and has since been better. And I think that those are big mismatches to defenses, especially like the Dolphins that do not have the weapons to cover the middle of the field as well in terms of the linebacking core. We'll see, and that's why they may force back some linebackers. They don't have the edge presence really to chip on those tight ends right now. Emmanuel Ogbah is one of the worst run defenders in the league. Run right at him, like run right at his helmet. That would be my suggestion here for the Bills. But ultimately, that 11 personnel situation is really great to run out of. And when you can do stuff like that, you can confuse the heck out of defenses. And I think that's what the Bills are trying to do. And then Ken Dorsey did a little way too much. He's just trying to confuse the defense rather than, maybe call your best play. And ultimately, you've seen Brady do it a little bit more. I thought he's relied on run too much, actually, against the Chargers. Their EPA per dropback was super strong and super successful. They should have thrown more. That is one of the only games of the year the Bills should have thrown more, was against the Chargers. They were wildly successful throwing the ball. They ran too much coming off that Cowboys game. They were running the ball way too much. Last week they got into a little bit better of a flow, but I still think they relied a little bit too much on the run. But you mentioned it, Z-Bot, number 2 DVOA in the league in the last 10 weeks, the New England defense. It is playoff. That is a playoff level defense. That is a defense that is as good as a playoff defense. Their offense stinks, but that playoff defense, it was a challenge for Josh Allen, and he's played some challenging defenses in the last 6 games.
Kevin, a quick question back to what you're saying about trying to throw off the defense. Is there a chance that within that, almost similar to what the Lions tried doing last week in one play, where they're trying to throw off the Cowboys, right, by sending out multiple linemen to, quote unquote, check in with the ref to be lined up for the pass, and it wound up backfiring because the line judge did not see that, and whatever the hell, you all know what unfolded, but the Lions rather wound up confusing the ref instead of confusing the defense, which was the target. Are the Bills and Josh Allen maybe in particular, are they almost confusing themselves to some degree more so than they are in pursuit of trying to confuse the defense? Is that something that might be hindering them a bit when they flop back and forth from the personnel groupings, or has that not been much of an impact?
Yeah, no, it was. It was probably one of some of the biggest problems with Ken Dorsey was the confusion, and probably where the Diggs confusion came in. And, Josh then, wanting to force feed it to Diggs. So earlier in the year, all I heard was that's all the Bills do. The offense is just Diggs. If you can shut down Diggs, you can beat the Bills. And now I'm hearing the opposite. He's hurt. He's got sciatica. He's got this. He's got that. Like, ultimately, like, the Bills just ran the ball down the Cowboys' throat. Right. Like, they didn't need receiving weapons. But yes, they are confusing themselves at times, and that's why Joe Brady was in here to just run the ball sometimes. That's basically what they wanted them to do. They're just like, hey, just run the ball out of 11 personnel because they are in a 2-high shell, and James Cook is good. So that's basically what they stopped doing, is stop being so confusing. And at some points now, I think you're able to reopen it back up to some of the stuff they were doing that was pretty successful. And that's why I think you really start to see Diggs, because we put on the film from last week and Diggs was open. You saw Josh go to Davis on a play where Diggs was wide open. You see him miss him on a deep throw later in the game. Like, Diggs was open in the game, and Diggs could have easily had 150 yards in the football game. So it's just a situation to where there's a big stretch of games coming up. This is a big one. The Bills need it. They may not have anything clinched, so the Bills will definitely have the jump that you're looking for to play for. So ultimately, guys, I think you see Diggs involved early and often in this game, because now they're going to Ramsey to shadow, which is not usually his strength and not usually what he does. So I think you can get a Diggs on Ramsey situation. Now you have plus matchups with Davis on Eli Apple and Khalil Shakir on Kader Kohu. So we'll see what the Bills do and able to mismatch, because every time someone tracks a receiver, there are corners that can do it. It isn't something you generally like to do because you like to feel comfortable with the sideline and knowing your boundaries. It is a challenge, especially if you don't do it on a week-to-week basis. The Dolphins are going to try it this week.
As far as an offensive game plan, you see like way more pass heavy, or are you thinking it's like more of like a solid mix? You're just married to the run?
You need a 50-50.
Especially with all the injuries and the mismatches.
Yeah, they're pretty bad against the run DVOA. You want to run the ball on them. This is different than the Patriots, who were number 2 DVOA. I don't think I thought they should have thrown a little bit more. They weren't really in a great rhythm last week at times. But in theory, like, you're going to run on them. But with the corner 2 out, you want to attack Eli Apple early and often. I don't think they have much of a pass rush, in my opinion. I don't think that they'll have that edge presence to really set off Josh Allen. You still have the good interior presence with Christian Wilkins. I think he's a pretty good player, and for the most part, he doesn't get as much pressure as you'd like, but he's a good, solid defensive tackle. And Sealer is really good as well next to him. So they do have a good interior D-line. I don't think they have the edge presence, and I don't think they have the backup corners to really put some pressure. I think you throw the ball, but you mix in some solid runs out of 11 personnel. I want as mixed of a game plan as it can come. I certainly don't want a 40-run game plan, though.
No. No, man. Let's just start spraying the field out in Miami, baby. That's what I'm trying to say. All right, guys, listen, we are approaching about 5 minutes left in the episode. Right before we wrap up, I think we got to go around the table, and we have to give our final score prediction, obvious, because this is the Bills Roundtable. There's a lot on the line for everything, starting off with UZ. Final score prediction and overall last take of the game.
Well, I got to tell you, the more we talk about it, the more things unfold with the injuries, the more things unfold with the scenarios at hand this coming weekend, the more it makes it really tough to pick this game. I have no idea what the mindset of either team's going to be going into this game. But if I had to best guess, the Bills are going into this one trying to give it their absolute, full foot to the pedal type performance. That's how I see it, especially after a couple of weeks where, that it was far from that. And they got out with wins, but certainly not impressive. This to me feels like a game where the Dolphins are coming off of a brutal loss. They're going to give their best effort as well, despite who's out there, just because they have got to be able, or at least if you're a Dolphins fan, you have got to think they're able to pick themselves up off the floor after last week. If not, you got bigger problems at hand, especially with the amount being played for this weekend. You don't get much more inspiration than this. So I think it's going to be tight through the first half. But I think ultimately the biggest difference here is that the injuries on offense for the offense for the Dolphins and, of course, their defense is going to wind up favoring towards the Bills, just because I think Josh Allen can take advantage a bit more of that banged up defense, as opposed to Tua, who we've seen against this Bills offense has not been able to take advantage of much. So I think it's more of a lower scoring game than the last one, certainly, where we almost hit 70 points. But I think this game, I'm looking at probably a 26-17 type ball game, closer in the first. But I just don't think the offense of the Miami Dolphins can get enough going in the second to keep on.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it's not that, though. I hope it's more like a week 4. Believe me, I'm praying.
Oh, dude, honestly, man, I would love nothing more than just like a relaxed win. All right. And so we got a taste of the Cowboys game. That was the most relaxed I was all year. All right, with that Cowboys game. It was beautiful. These past 2 weeks, not so much. Kevin, what you got? Final score?
I think that the Bills will try to shrink this game. I mean, I think that ultimately, I don't want them to run 40 times, but I think the Bills are going to get up. I'm predicting 10-0 in this game. And then they're going to say, let's shorten this game up. Let's try to make it into a situation to where we're not going to play forever. We're going to risk no injuries. Let's just get this game over with and get home to the playoffs. And I think you'll see that. So I think they're going to come with a better defensive game plan, maybe than offensive, because you're going to do whatever you can to limit Tua in this game. And I have it at 24-13. I think that they're going to. I mean, they've been field goal merchants lately over there in Miami. So I think ultimately 24-13, the Bills are going to shorten the game. They're going to get a Tua turnover. You're just going to, with the way the Bills drop their linebackers, it's going to be Terrell Bernard that's going to pick them off in a cover 3 situation. And he's going to drift, and he's going to run with the receiver, and Tua's not going to notice it because he's going to be on his first read. So that's ultimately what I have. I mean, the game could get heavy quickly if the Bills want to go that way and want to get into a 34-27 game. I just feel like the Bills are going to take those long, methodical drives in this, and they're going to get out of Miami and back home to focus on the AFC South team.
Oh, man. I loved everything you said. He said 24. All right. Me, I am going to go 28-13. Okay, once again, I do see that this offense
under 20, by the way. Just pointing that out. We all got the Dolphins float under 20 in this one.
Yeah, dude. I mean, listen, I'm trying to be fair, but I can't, in good faith, think that I see this team reaching the end zone more than once. I really don't, man. We broke all this down, guys. If you're tuning in late, definitely go on ahead and rewind and really get a good understanding of that. We're not just here talking shit just to talk shit. It's really good and methodical analysis based off of what we've seen. However, like we've said, it's any given Sunday. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen on this game, but I'm feeling really good. I'm going to stick to my 28-13 And then I wouldn't be surprised if we see JA with a baseball cap on midway through the fourth quarter. Going into it, wouldn't that be the best? Ladies and gentlemen, that just so happens to be the first episode of the Bills Roundtable. Z-Bot, what's going on in your channel for the rest of the week, man?
I'll do another show probably tomorrow. I'll do another one tomorrow, and then it's just a whole lot of sitting around, pacing back and forth, waiting for Sunday. Luckily for us, though, Saturday we can clinch, which is great in the early game, and then the night game will be fun too because that's essentially a playoff game in itself. So it'll tide us over for a while, but the Sunday nighter here is really, really killing me. This has been a super long week, so we'll bang another one out tomorrow, talk more about it, and then it's on to the game.
Some great football on Saturday because we'll likely be watching our future opponent on that Saturday night game.
Also a great point. Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
Definitely go ahead and check that out. Kev, what's going on your channel? What are the plans for the game? What's up?
Yeah, I catch my show yesterday, Wednesdays. We go pretty in depth there, so check that out over there. Going Deep Buffalo, as well as the same. Saturday's going to be a big game. I'll be watching that. That is for the opponent that Bills most likely play in this situation, outside of a Jacksonville loss as well. You're going to play the winner of this game Saturday, so I'm going to be watching that to see what I think of that. McDermott's epically good against rookie quarterbacks. I'm interested to see how Stroud does without receivers. Noah Brown's out. Robert Woods is banged up. Tank Dell's already hurt, so I'm interested to see what he looks like. And then, would love to have a Ravens win to give us a little bit of breathing room in a situation. Yeah. So very excited for Saturday football for sure. Those were some good games to help the Bills, at least rooting interest. But you can catch my show yesterday, and you'll catch me pop in throughout the Built in Buffalo network.
Absolutely, ladies and gentlemen. Certainly go show them some love. They're going to be regular contributors on the AFC East Roundtable Sports for the Bills Roundtable, and then also some various other shows that we just ended up dropping throughout the season. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you next week.
Go Bills!